Adam, more than 4,000 people stuck on a cruise ship and not a single functioning toilet on board.
Oh, God.
Literal sewage was seeping through the walls and sloshing within the carpet beneath them. The crew then start going from cabin to cabin, handing out these red square biohazard bags for people to start pooping in. They are literally 6 inches by 6 inches square.
How can you aim into a bag that size?
You can't. And for dinner, you could choose from a lovingly assembled onion sandwich or a roll and a ketchup packet.
What the hell is happening on this cruise ship?
Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating things, a weekly variety podcast that gives you just enough information to stand your ground at any social gathering.
We explore stories from the darker corners of true crime, the hidden gems of history, and the jaw-dropping deeds of extraordinary people.
I am Kyle Risi, your ringmaster for this week's episode.
And I'm Adam Cox, the angry customer shouting in the audience this week.
A heckler.
A heckler, yeah.
What are your jibes that you're going to be throwing out today? You suck.
Boo.
Just the classics.
You're not my mother.
I had sex with your mum.
Yeah, the classics.
Before we dive in, just a quick heads up to all of our lovely freaks out there. Remember that signing up to our Patreon as a free member will get you early access to next week's episode an entire 7 days before anyone else. And as always, it is always completely free of charge.
And if you want even more, then consider becoming a certified freak for a small monthly subscription. It will unlock all of our unreleased episodes up to 6 weeks earlier, brand new, never heard before, and straight off the press.
And we're also expanding our Patreon benefits even further, because now you can access all of our vintage episodes from season 1 and eventually season 2 as we say goodbye to it. These are all the episodes from back in the day when we were first starting out, the ones that really made you fall in love with the show.
There's so much content for you to get stuck into, and we'll be adding even more exclusive episodes for Patreon members as the weeks go on. So signing up for as little as $3 is literally the best way you can support the show.
And you can't forget our free merch that we offer all of our certified freaks.
Oh yeah, the keychain.
Yeah, the one that's always dangling there by your crotch.
Yes.
Why do we say that every week?
Because it's just
crass.
It's But our listeners love having that dangling near their crotch.
Do they?
I don't know.
Have we had any feedback from anyone going, do you know what? I go out at night and this is a total man magnet for me. Because there's nothing more than men love than a pair of balls hanging down.
No one's told us to stop. So until they do.
Please just stop. And yeah, depending on the tier that you choose, we've got exclusive merch to send your way. It's absolutely free. And again, it's the beautifully machine-lathed exclusive Compendium keychain, so we can always be dangling there by your crotch. It's a special thank you for supporting us over all these months. And if you are an existing member, just send us a DM with your address and we'll ship one out to you no matter where you are in the world, and we'll cover the costs.
Yep, keep an eye out because we'll be launching even more goodies in the months to come.
Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcasting app and leave us a review. Your support really helps us reach more people like you who love a good tale of the unexpected. All right, that's enough of the housekeeping. It's time to dive into today's story because Adam, today on the Compendium, we are diving into an assembly of floating biohazard dramas. Dun dun dun.
What is going on here then? So people are out at sea and some kind of pollution, some kind of oil spill.
Adam, it goes without saying that based on a number of episodes that we have done on the Compendium, that the ocean is a very dangerous place.
It is.
We've got rogue waves, we've got pirates, we've got icebergs, we've got sharks. Hell, we even have a submersible submarine made out of carbon fiber. Do you remember that episode?
It was literally last week.
So it might surprise you to hear that in 2023, over 30 million people willingly chose to go on a cruise.
Okay.
And after researching this episode, I can't imagine anything more horrific than being stuck in the middle of the ocean with literally thousands of potential serial killers.
Has that actually happened? Have people been on a cruise where there's a murderer at risk? Or?
People have been on cruises where they have been murdered. And the thing is, though, you got to think you can't escape from that cruise ship. So as tensions rise, if something bad happens, you are on a cruise ship with a lot of frustrated, potentially violent people. I can't imagine anything worse than being on a cruise ship.
I mean, it's not for me, I don't think. Maybe when I hit 60, I'll love it. But
what is it about people that love cruise ships? I don't get it.
I guess people love dining at the captain's table.
There's 4,000 people on these damn ships. The captain's going to eat with every single one of them?
He gets around.
Sorry, so fat.
But yeah, I get the idea or the appeal whereby you're visiting a load of different islands and overnight you're traveling to different countries or whatever it might be, and you stop off for the day and get off and go see it. So I get it, but it's not for me because I want to experience the culture at night.
Yeah, that's it. And that's one of the biggest problems with the cruise ship industry is that a lot of the amenities and the restaurants and stuff, even when you arrive in those cities, they're all owned or controlled by the cruise ship industry. So these economies that you're visiting get very, very little from the people visiting them. It's a real problem. And the thing is, though, PR firms governing cruise ships must be doing something right because overall, cruise ships are often marketed as safe, relaxing getaways. But recent data reveals some very concerning trends regarding serious crimes and incidents on the seas. Between 2015 and 2023, sexual assaults was the most reported crime on a cruise ship, with over 450 cases being reported. Violent crimes and physical assaults in such close proximity to all that free booze is just widely reported. And the chance of being robbed in your cabin or being broken into is just another routine form that passengers have to fill in as the admin worker just rolls their eyes at you. Oh, yeah, you've been broken into again. It's just so commonplace.
Really? I did not know this. I thought they were supposed to be like luxury cruises.
Well, you would think, wouldn't you? It depends. It could be marketed as a luxury cruise, but you don't know who you're going to get as a passenger, right?
True.
When it comes to more serious crimes, like murder, they are rare, but they are not unheard of. In 2018, Tamara Tucker was murdered by her boyfriend, Eric Newman, aboard a Carnival Elation cruise ship after a heated argument. Apparently, Eric strangled Tamara before tipping her body over the balcony. So it's pretty dark.
Wow. Although I don't think that's the cruiser's fault in terms of that probably could have happened anywhere if it's like a violent relationship.
What I'm saying is that these things can happen on cruise ships.
Sure.
And you could very easily be involved in that in some way. That anger and aggression could have been taken out on you.
Sorry, I had it in my mind that it's like a mystery serial killer that's just let loose on the cruise ship. And so you don't know if you're at risk.
Oh, you're speculating about what this episode's about.
Yes.
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
I want to paint a picture of just like how you should not be going on cruise ships.
Okay.
Because Shirley McGill, she was also killed by her partner, Robert McGill, on the Carnival Elation during a 5-night cruise to Mexico. Apparently, he beat her to a pulp before strangling her in her cabin. But then there's also the case of Amy Lynn Bradley. She was traveling with her family on a Royal Caribbean cruise. And Adam, she just vanished 30 minutes after last being seen. It's speculated that Amy was kidnapped, she was held captive, and then smuggled off the ship when it finally docked in its destination and was then sold into human trafficking.
Wow.
And we don't know where she is to this day. She literally just disappeared off that ship within a 30-minute window. Her father was the last person to see her on her own balcony.
How does that even happen? Because you feel like, I don't know, there's nowhere to escape easily, and you must be able to find all the hiding places or whatever.
Yeah.
On a cruise.
But the trouble is, like, if you've got like a window of 2 hours to try and find her, and then it docks in the next stop, as soon as they get her off the ship, that is it. But then also, what do? Do you stay on the ship, hoping that maybe she's on there, or do you stay on land, hoping that she's been taken off the ship? What do you do in that situation?
You've no idea.
Exactly. But also, let's not forget that the cruise industry is rife with tax evasion, exploitation of workers, vast amounts of pollution, all while robbing small communities drive resources and tourist money. And just to add to this already long list of reasons to never get on a cruise ship, today I'm going to tell you about one specific incident that will make you reconsider ever getting onto a cruise ship ever again.
Well, I haven't even thought about getting on one, but this is probably going to just...
It's going to solidify that.
Yeah.
Adam, picture this. It is February the 7th, 2013.
Uh-huh.
You picturing that day?
Yeah. It's cold.
Yeah. No, you're in the Caribbean.
Oh, okay. It's hot.
Yeah. You've just boarded a $420 million Carnival Triumph cruise ship from Galveston, Texas.
Am I wearing a hat?
You are wearing whatever you want to wear. You're definitely wearing shorts. You're a short kind of guy.
And a big hat.
Like the hat that...
You know the one.
I haven't even said it yet. The hat that Rachel wears in Friends.
Uh-huh.
And Chandler's like, I I recognize that hat. I was taken on board that hat. They did experiments on me. I can't have kids. Yeah, so that hat.
Okay, yeah.
This is one of the finest cruise ships on the ocean. It's got state-of-the-art restaurants, world-class entertainment, amenities to rival a 5-star resort, all spread across 274 meters of deck space, rising 13 decks into the sky. It's huge. It's a literal towering luxury hotel resort, and you are there to have the time of your life. Are you picturing it?
I'm thinking of the music now.
Yeah. What music's playing?
Dirty Dancing.
It's going to be even better than that. After 2 days of smooth sailing across the Gulf of Mexico, you finally arrive in the beautiful city of Cozumel in Mexico, where you spend the day shopping, you're sipping pina coladas on the beach. Of course, you are not thinking about the crippling third world poverty right outside the resort. Doesn't even cross your mind.
No, I'm just thinking about my coconut bra banging together.
Yeah. You're ready to make out.
Yeah.
Around 6 p.m., you get back onto the boat, you hit the buffet, you stuff your face with as much food that you can barely breathe.
Like all you can eat oysters and shrimp.
Oh, God. Oysters.
Yeah.
Ugh, no. Oysters at a buffet? No, thank you.
Hang on a second.
I know. I
You've
know
done
why
this
you say this, but I will not do it again. When we were in Australia, they had a buffet full of oysters and we were like, yeah, let's get like 6.
And we're on a boat.
And we were on a boat. But what's going to happen on this boat is not what happened on our boat in Australia. Because, Adam, after you finish the buffet, the night is still young. This cruise isn't filled with pensioners looking for a swingers weekend. Oh, no. Because most of the passengers on the ship are 30 and 40-year-olds, right? So you decide to check out the cruise's entertainment by heading up to the Lido deck where the DJ is playing Gangnam Style 129 times in a row. But you don't care. You don't mind.
I would say find another record.
But it really dates when this story is happening. 2013 peak. That was the song of the summer. So after a few more cocktails, you hit the buffet one last time, because I know that's what you all do. And then you stumble back to your room to finally get into bed for some well-deserved rest before hitting that buffet again in the morning. But as you finally drift off, your sleep is interrupted by the sound of an announcement filling every single corridor across this gargantuan ship.
Attention, Amber Team, Amber Team, attention, Amber Team, Amber Team, Amber Team.
What's he saying?
Alpha Team.
Alpha Team.
Alpha Team is code for fire.
Oh.
This sound blasts through the entire ship at 5:27 a.m. Just 15 minutes earlier, the ship's engineer heard an alarm going off in the engine room, and to his horror, he sees the diesel generator was spraying fuel all over the place. If he didn't act now, the entire ship would go up into flames. But in order to do that, Adam, he needed to make his way to the other side of the engine room to shut off the generator manually. The only problem was the engine room was flooded with fuel up to his ankles. So any wrong move and he would literally be burnt to a crisp. So the engineer carefully starts making his way across to the control panel. Boom. The fuel ignites and the engine room is completely incinerated.
How that quick?
It's fuel, for God's sake.
Yeah.
By some miracle, the engineer is completely fine. He makes it out in time. But now there was a massive fire in the engine room. That is when the Alpha Team message started blaring out across the entire ship. Smoke starts filling up the lower decks. Thick clouds begin spewing out of the ship's tail. And of course, people are unsurprisingly freaking the fuck out at this point.
Yeah, the first thing I think of is, oh God, this is like the Titanic.
Exactly. Many of them start pulling on their life jackets. They start gathering near the lifeboats. The last thing the captain wants at this point is a massive, widespread panic. So immediately, he jumps onto the intercom with the following announcement.
We are really sorry about the wake-up call so early, but everything is under control.
Again, I have no idea what he's saying.
Exactly. That is the absolute point here. Basically, he is saying that everything is under control and there's no need to panic. But nobody can understand what the hell he's saying through that thick Italian accent. All he does is remind people of what happened on board the Carnival cruise ship just the previous year when the Costa Concordia struck rocks off the Italian coast of Tuscany, resulting in 32 deaths.
Jeez.
So the announcement has done the opposite of what it was intended to do. And now everyone is freaking the fuck out.
Well, yeah.
Finally realizing, of course, the fear that the captain's accent has instilled in the hearts of every single passenger, cruise director Jen decides to have a crack. She reassures everyone that the situation was under control, everything was being handled, and everything was going to be okay. Here's her announcement.
Everything is completely under control, so please, folks, there's no point waiting in the muster station to go back to your cabin, go back to bed, go and have some coffee, have some breakfast.
I'd be like, okay, but you've just said about alpha teamed.
The fire is still blazing at this point.
Yeah, and there's been like a siren going off or whatever. And she's just going, yeah, just go have yourself some coffee, have some more oysters. It's fine.
At 6 a.m. No thanks.
There will be someone that will be doing that.
Yuck. This does calm people down to an extent, but at least they weren't now bulldozing towards the lifeboats, right? That's the important thing. But things were pretty far from okay. The fire was still raging in the engine room. As I said, the crew behind the scene are doing everything they can to just put this fire out. Eventually, the ship's CO2 cooling systems activates, which obviously quickly puts out the fire. Great. The feeling was that an absolute crisis had just been averted.
Okay, that's good.
That was until one engineer came back with terrible news. The fire had completely destroyed the engine. The Triumph was now stuck in the middle of the Gulf with no power. 4,229 people were now stranded with no air conditioning, no power, which meant that there was no hot food, there was no refrigeration, there was no music, there was no TV on board.
Oh my word.
But even worse, Adam, something unbelievably unimaginable had just happened. That was about to change the lives of all 4,200 passengers and crew on board the Carnival Triumph forever. There were no working toilets.
Not even one.
Not even one toilet on board. And the reason for that is because the plumbing is essentially electric. It's one of those kind of vacuum kind of plumbing systems that you might see on an airport or on a train where it sucks everything out.
Yeah.
Without that working, there's no toilets on board.
Oh, and I've just had oysters for breakfast.
Yes. So today on the Compendium, I'm going to be telling you about the Carnival Triumph cruise ship, a story that has solidified its spot in history, becoming known as the Poop Cruise from Hell.
God, is this going to be like Family Guy when they start like throwing up and it's just like everywhere?
Yes, because it's like really contagious, right?
Yeah.
Adam, this story is worse than a fight. It's even worse than a kidnapping at this point. And I stand by that because at least if you're kidnapped, you're taken off that ship. Today, I'm going to tell you about the grueling story of how 4,200 passengers and crew on board ended up stranded at sea, spending 6 days with no lights, no water, nothing to eat, and nothing to entertain them. But even worse, no fucking toilets.
Oh, God.
4,200 passengers were forced to crap in plastic bags that started piling up all over the ship.
Oh, my God. They've got doggy bags.
On top of that, literal sewage is seeping through the walls and sloshing within the carpets beneath them. Let's just say, Adam, that it just does not take very long for shit to literally hit the fan. This is the story of the 2013 Poop Cruise from Hell.
Oh, God, this is going to be gross.
I'm so excited about this episode. Right, you ready to get into it?
I think so. I feel dirty already.
Yeah, I feel dirty as well. So, Adam, sum up. There's 4,200 passengers and crew on board, stranded on the Carnival Triumph. Like I said, it's a state-of-the-art ship, but the fire has knocked out all the power, and even worse, the plumbing systems. Help is on its way, but it is going to take some time. There was still running water on the ship, but it's ice cold. So without heating, the only option is to take a cold shower. There was still one generator running on the ship, but it was only capable of just running all the emergency lighting. So at best, the ship is just really dimly lit in order for you to be able to find the emergency exits and the staircases and doorways, etc. Without air conditioning, the Triumph is now exposed to the full force of the Caribbean sun. Temperatures on board start, of course, soaring. If you were unlucky enough to have booked an interior cabin without windows, your experience was about to get way worse.
Oh, God. Like, I imagine it just being unbearable because you can't, even in the shade, I imagine it's not very nice.
And you have no fucking entertainment. You've got no internet. You've got no music. Nothing.
I'm more worried about not being able to go to the toilet and like having good food and like running water and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Entertainment, I'm sure they can put on a show.
I could put on a show myself.
Yeah.
I'd get you to put on a show for me. Hey, Adam, dance.
Exactly. I'm sure they can sort that out, but
It's the fundamentals, right?
yeah, but good thing it's not sinking. So, you know, that's a check. They're not drowning. but they just got to now wait at sea until someone rescues them.
That's it. And like I said, on top of this, no power, no entertainment, not even Wi-Fi. It's all completely out. If you did have signal, it's spotty at best. So people are like literally walking around with their phones in the air, trying to get a message to shore to let people know that they're going to be okay. If you were lucky, the message would go through. If not, you would literally just keep trying before your battery drained, because once that happened, that was it. There's no power. Some passengers, however, they did manage to find a handful of power sockets that were still working, but these were just completely kind of swarmed with like power strips and extension cables, and kept secret from a lot of the other passengers. But it created this kind of massive pile of twisted wires, a bit like the Rat King. Do you know when all those rats get their tails entwined?
Imagine someone like guarding it and almost like selling it or something like that. Bribes and say, I will give you some wet wipes for, give me some electric, man. I just need some electric.
So, of course, no power on board also meant that there was no refrigeration, right? So very quickly, the realization sets in that it's going to be almost impossible to feed 4,200 passengers and crew. It was only a few hours after losing power that food was already starting to spoil, especially in this heat, right? Seafood and salads, they were the first to go. Then, with nothing to cook with, the rest of the perishables soon followed after that. So your meats and your eggs and your cheeses and things like that.
So by day 3, you're just going to be on like cornflakes.
So breakfast was kind of okay that first morning, right? But as lunch came around, the assortment of buffet foods that passengers were already used to had just been depleted down to a selection of cold cuts and cucumber sandwiches. That was all that was left. Of course, passengers immediately start panicking. People start grabbing anything that they could and just start hoarding all of this food in their cabins. It's not long before the passengers left with no food start panicking for obviously a different reason, because they have literally nothing, right?
Yeah.
They realize that all the cabins are fitted with mini bars containing unopened cans of drink and chocolate bars and everything like that. Once they consumed all of their food in their rooms, they start literally raiding other people's rooms, looking for anything that they can get their hands on. And honestly, if I were in that situation and all that was being offered was just cold cuts and cucumber sandwiches, I would literally fight to the death for a Snickers bar at this stage. Like, I know it's only been a few hours, but I would 100% raid your room.
We've barely got to lunch and people are doing this.
Yeah.
Like, just calm down. Why are the crew not rationing the food and say, yeah, you're only allowed 2 cucumber sandwiches?
Oh, it's going to get to the rationing, of course. At this point, they didn't realize people are going to act like absolute animals. But I mean, to be fair, I'm not a great person at the best of times. I would be one of those people hoarding the food and I would be raiding your room.
Yeah,
100%.
That's just, okay. I'm interested to see where this goes.
And then, of course, there's the toilet situation. Of course, the sewerage system is offline. It meant that across the ship with 4,200 passengers, there was not a single functioning toilet on board. But at this stage, people don't know this.
Oh, no.
Again, at this point, it's Sunday morning. So by 9 a.m., an influx of people had already used the toilets, as many of us already do, of course, at this time in the morning, right? What nobody realizes is that without the power, the sewage system just doesn't work. Like I said, it's that kind of sort of vacuum system that you get on airplanes. It just needs power to function. So with every poop and peep, the pipes just start backing up higher and higher. And just think about that for a second. This is Sunday morning. The night before was Saturday night on board a Carnival cruise ship.
Oh, no.
People are on their holidays, Adam, literally drinking as much as they can stomach. They're eating as much food as they can literally stuff in their mouths. You were one of those people just 5 minutes ago.
I know.
Do you feel proud of yourself?
But I didn't realize I wasn't going to get a toilet. So let me get this straight. So with the toilets then, you've just done your business, you've flushed, but it hasn't flushed. But it could go down. But what you're saying...
I think it goes down, but it's backing up in the pipes.
So people just think, oh, well, that's working. It's fine. But that's going to... I know where that's heading, isn't it?
And remember, this wasn't your nan and granddad cruise relaxing, right? These were 30 to 40-something-year-olds all out there to have a freaking good time. Also, they just left Mexico. And if there is something I know for sure about Mexican water, it does not agree with the Western digestive system. So when the early poopers are having their morning poop, I think it's safe to assume that there's a lot of diarrhea going on.
Oh, God.
People also probably throwing up as well, right? The amount of alcohol that people drink on these kind of cruise ships, especially on a Saturday night. So you can imagine that people were vomiting. By mid-morning, because of gravity, all the poop and peep from the upper decks was now collecting the pipes on the lower decks, causing most of the cabin toilets to start overflowing with raw human sewage.
So if you're on the top deck, you might be all right.
Yes.
God.
And where do most people most commonly keep their luggage when you're on holiday? On the floor. A lot of people live outside of their suitcase.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. on the freaking floor, Adam. So carnage starts ensuing all over the ship. People are freaking out because obviously these toilets are now overflowing. The crew have to somehow stop people from using the toilets. What are they going to do, Adam?
Can you do it overboard into a bucket and tip it out?
Yeah, can you imagine?
Just imagine just lining up and they're just people just like throwing theirs. That's the only thing you can do, right?
Yeah. Let's bring our old mate back in, Jen, right? She comes in onto the intercom with a little message. Here it is.
You probably know by now the toilets are not flushing and it's going to start causing a little bit of a problem in a short while. So we've come up with a plan. So folks, what we're going to do is we're going to deliver some red bags to all of the bathrooms on board, including the stateroom bathrooms, your cabin bathrooms. And if you do need to do a number 2, we ask that you please do deposit that into the red bags, and then we're going to put metal bins in the corridors on every deck on the ship. If you would be so kind as to drop them into the metal bins in the corridors, that would be fantastic. And if you do need to do a number 1, everybody, to say filling up the toilet bowls, if you can do it in the shower.
That's a lot to take in.
Process. First of all, what do you think of her tone?
Well, just a little problem. It's just a little problem.
Love her.
Yeah.
She's just so classically a holiday rep, right? That tone of voice. Here's what we're going to do, guys. Okay, you're all going to shit in bags.
And she's probably drunk, or as soon as she's finished that announcement, she is swinging some vodka. And I'm like, God.
So the crew start going cabin to cabin, handing out these little red square biohazard bags for everybody to poop in. And of course, it's suggested that everyone should poop in the showers, right? Or into the sinks. So a bunch of people who are early poopers, they've already pooped in the toilets and they've tried to flush them. Assuming that you're a late pooper, like me, I'd have to go in one of those bio red bags.
And how big are they?
6 inches by 6 inches. So if you have diarrhea, target practice is essential at this point.
Yeah, it's like aim carefully.
Because these bags are just 6 inches by 6 inches. Do you know what? I'd probably actually be okay in this situation because when we were in Australia, I went 11 days without a poop. So I'm flying high, bitch. I can keep it in. You, however, you would have died.
I don't understand. I'm trying to think what 6 inches by 6 inches is. That probably would accommodate most poop. But if you've got diarrhea or like you've been drinking the night before,
Yeah.
and then you've got to go stick it in the corridor in a metal bin
Exactly.
in a place that has no air conditioning.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the size of the bags, I estimated this based on a trailer that I watched when they were doing the documentary on this. But in some pictures, I've seen slightly bigger bags as well. So they could be really small, they could be really big.
And how do you do that? I'm just trying to imagine if it is a small opening, how do you... Yeah, that's going to get messy. And do they have these bags just on standby for this type of scenario? Because where did they get all these bags
I
from?
think that they might be like, for some reason, red sanitary bags that women might get in hotels. I think but they're red, normally they're white. They must be used for something. I don't know. But yeah, they've got these on hand. And I don't think it's specifically for this intention. It must have been for just a general intention.
I was going to say, is there a backup plan if this ever happens?
It'd be awful if this is the backup plan. What are you going to do if all the toilets break? Oh, we've got these biohazard bags. Yeah, just open up their cabinet, open them up, just stacks and stacks of them. That's for these situations. How often do you have to use them? More often than you think.
And there's like 4,000 people on board.
Yeah.
And most people go, let's say, once a day on average.
Me, one every 11 days,
Yeah.
as we've already established.
Yeah, that just makes me think, is there enough bags?
It's horrifying.
Okay.
So by this point, the overflowing sewage is now being baked by the heat trapped in the ship's interior, right? The smell of raw human sewage throughout the ship just becomes completely inescapable. To make matters worse, it is winter in the Caribbean. And as well as it's still being hot, the seas are also incredibly choppy. Ordinarily, the ship's stabilization system would counteract the waves and you would be quite steady on the ocean. But with no power, the ship starts listing from side to side. So every time the ship leans left or right, pissy and poopy water starts lapping out of the toilets. And there is this footage of guests filming the sewage just slop from one side of their cabin to the other as the ship just tilts. Adam, it's disgusting. And all their belongings on the floor. It's rank.
So they're standing in other people's feces and urine and they're filming it thinking, this is going to be great. Why do they get out of their cabin?
You also see footage of pissy water just slopping down the staircase. So
Oh,
sewage is everywhere. It is seeping into the carpets. It's then going through the floors, and then it will go down through the ceilings and the walls into kind of the lower decks as well. It is awful. All the lower deck people can do is just scramble to the upper decks. But while they do that, they're trailing sewage with them, just squelching under their feet into the upper decks as well. By midday, the entire ship just stinks of literal shit. And it just gets worse hour by hour that they're stuck on that ship.
I mean, do you know sometimes in Norwich, there's at times of the year where the farmers, they put manure on their fields and the whole city just stinks.
It does, yeah.
And I think, God, that's gross. I'd hate to be like that close to a field and do that.
I really like that smell.
Okay, that's weird.
I think it's because I grew up in Africa, so I'm used to it.
You might like the poop cruise then.
I would not like the poop cruise. There's one smell I can't handle, and that's like human feces.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, that's bad enough. I cannot imagine this.
But there's something nice and earthy about horse manure. I quite like that smell. But human poop, no. And you can always tell a human poo from an animal poo 100% of the time.
Well, it's usually quite big in comparison to most animals.
I've seen some pretty big animals. I had Alsatians growing up, and their poops were monstrous. And it's still, I could go, that's a dog poop.
It's a weird trick, a talent. I don't know.
That's a weird talent. What's your talent, Kyle? What are you bringing to the table?
I can tell a human poo from a dog poo.
It's like that chick from American Horror Story who can look at a food and go, I know how many calories. That was her superpower.
Yeah.
But yeah, like every step you take, literally it's squelching under your feet. I am proud to be a non-croc wearer at this stage because 2013 was peak croc wearing activity time.
Well, now it's kind of quite peak, but yeah.
I think, it's even bigger now, but then I think it was quite a big thing.
Any kind of flip-flop or open-toe sandal.
So guests say that the heat and the smell would literally choke you to the point that your eyes would burn. They described it as being in a porta potty at a festival in like the middle of summer. And I can completely relate to that. I think you can too, especially that relief when you leave the porta potty and the fresh air just hits you in the face. So, oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Because you're holding your breath the whole way through, or your mouth breathing.
And at least in a porta potty, there is that a kind of a chemical that kind of at least subdues some of the smell. Here, there's not going to have that.
No. So the thing is, though, unlike a porta potty, nobody can escape. If you were lucky enough to be on the upper decks, for those passengers, life was not as bad. Since, of course, A, you're further away from the backed up sewerage thanks to gravity, but also B, because some of them had windows, so they could just open up the windows and just let fresh air go through the corridors.
If I'm going to be raiding anyone, it's going to be them.
Yeah, exactly. Fuckers think they're
first class.
They think that they're entitled to escape the stench. I'll show them. I'll go and shit in their room. That'll teach them, and then take the wallet.
Yeah.
I'm not a great person on this cruise.
No.
So by the end of the first day, the lower decks had become so unbearable that there was no way that a passenger could stay in their room for more than a few minutes without gagging. And I guess that's just the thought of some gross, overweight tourist poop just sloshing in your toilet cabin. I just don't think I'd like that. You're probably painting a picture of whose poop it is.
I mean, do you know what? At this point, it's probably like multiple people's just swimming around your ankles.
It's 100% other people's, but I can't help but fantasize about whose poop it is.
Fantasize.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So passengers, what they start to do is they start hauling their mattresses upstairs to the sun deck. They're going to basically set up camp. They basically string up a bunch of sheets and blankets into literal forts on the actual sun deck, on the Lido deck where the swimming pool is. And when you see images of this, it literally looks like a favela or like a shanty town in some kind of war-torn country or something like that. It's pretty cool, but when you consider what's happening across the ship, I would 100% prefer this.
So they're doing this, they're kind of making a makeshift room, are they? On where the
just
air
to get
is
away
clear?
from the smell, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But there is a catch, because every night the temperatures, they plummet down to 4 degrees Celsius.
God.
So it's almost freezing. And it's not like people have packed much in the way of warm clothing, right? Remember, they've literally just left Mexico, so people are just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. But again, for me, this is still the preferable option, right? Way better than sleeping in a literal Dutch oven of stinky poop from some kind of morbidly obese guy. But to keep warm, passengers, basically, they wear the bathrobes provided in each cabin. But because most of the luggage that they brought with them was now piss and poop stained, that's literally all they wore for most of the time there. That's all they had.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful detail about the story, because in the aftermath of all of this, once this was all over, Carnival had to scramble to work out what kind of compensation that they would offer passengers. And one of the things they do is allow passengers to keep their bathrobes. And I'm like, bitch, please, you were never going to keep them anyway.
Yeah.
You were going to chuck them out.
That's not compensation.
No.
Like, you can keep the slippers as well,
Yeah.
the
Anything
towels.
that's such poop as yours. And they dress it up as like this gesture of goodwill. You keep the bathrobe.
Oh, God, they were white.
By day 2 now, food is, of course, dangerously low. All the food and drink across the ship has, of course, been raided and robbed from most of the cabins. And the food that people did get hold of was just hoarded by the few. So the ship starts rationing the food to make sure that everyone gets at least something, right? Passengers have to wait in line, sometimes for hours, Adam. And now I want you to put yourself in their shoes for a second. You get to the front of the queue.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going for?
So what have you got? What are the options for me?
So, Adam, you can choose from a lovingly assembled onion sandwich or a bread roll and a ketchup packet.
Oh, God. This feels like Fire Festival.
It does, doesn't it?
Lovingly assembled. That's a nice spin on that.
But an onion sandwich.
Is it? Oh, it's not cooked. It's raw, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they think that was... Is that the only ingredient they can put in a
I think
sandwich?
so. I think that's all they had.
I mean, this is day 2 or day 3.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to be like on day 4 and 5?
So what you got to go for? You have to pick something.
Probably the onion sandwich, because at least there'll be some kind of flavor with that.
But ketchup packet.
Yeah,
I think I'll go for the onion sandwich as well, for sure. But also bottled water. That was now being rationed as well. 1 bottle per room per night. So very little water.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, by the afternoon of day 2, the Carnival legend finally arrives after Triumph to drop off some much needed food supplies.
Ah, good.
Good thing too, because literally another 6 hours and passengers would be starting to eat each other. But of course, with no power, no refrigeration, or even an oven, none of it could be cooked. So it was still just a minor uptick from onion sandwiches, but at least people were not going to starve, essentially. It was things like crisps and pepperonis and things like that. So still things that didn't require much preparation.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 more ships scheduled to drop off at some point during the next 6 days. So they're not going to starve, Adam. That is probably the most important thing, I guess.
No, and to be fair, you don't want to be like serving something that's going to upset people's stomachs.
More than it already is.
Yeah, it's going to be very plain and beige food.
So some people do start requiring medical attention. In particular, one woman was expecting to dock in Galveston the previous day on schedule, right? And then from there, she needed to rush off for a dialysis appointment. So the Coast Guard had to transport her to another cruise ship just so that she can get to the hospital.
So if they can transfer her, could they not have transferred more people, or at least done it in some sort of bus system or whatever?
Well, it turns out that it's not easy putting a board between 2 boats and having everyone walk across. Remember, it is winter and also the sea is dangerously rough. The stabilizers on the ships are not working. So Carnival would rather have 4,000 pissed off people than risk having 1 dead one.
Yeah. So how did she get off then?
I think the Coast Guard helicopter took her, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But also, remember, those other ships, they're full, right? So there's no way they could accommodate another 4,000 passengers, especially ones that are literally knee-deep in peep and poop from the lower decks. Would you want them on your ship?
I'd be like, nah.
I'm sorry for your situation, but yeah, I'm going to go off for a pina colada and I'm going to forget everything that's happening on that ship. Good luck, guys. Just like you were doing at the resort in Mexico when you were not thinking about all the pain and suffering happening outside the resort. Exact same thing.
Why are you putting this on me?
So, the message is firmly sunk in not to use any of the cabin toilets. These red poop bags, of course, they're now starting to pile up in all the hallways as instructed. Let's just be real here for a second. We have met people. We know how gross they can be. Those bags were supposed to be sealed when they were filled. Remember, they're 6 by 6 inches, according to one source. How do you judge how many poops can fit in a bag? That's my first question.
Well, I guess you can't, because you don't know necessarily
When to stop, when to cinch that thing off.
Yeah, and how long are you going to be there?
Yeah.
So you don't know, how much you can fill. So you might go like, oh, that's it. And then you go to seal the bag and you're like, well, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Do you put it in another bag?
Yeah.
Are you going to take it out? Are you going to go in and lift out your poop and put it in another bag?
This is so rank.
Oh, God, people are probably switched off by now.
Basically, it's a lot of poop. Plus, there's no one enforcing this as well. So you know that there's going to be a percentage of bags that aren't properly sealed at all. Especially if you've got like kids and you're having to do a lot and like you've got a family of 12 people that you've got to organize their poops. So you know that there's a percentage of bags that aren't properly sealed or even aimed into with laser precision.
Can you imagine you're in a new relationship? This is your first holiday together.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of months. You're like, let's go on a cruise around Mexico. It'll be great.
It's a relationship maker or it's a relationship breaker.
I just imagine these people like, "Oh, I'll hold, like holding out this bag
Yeah.
for people to aim in.
I guess when you're early on in a relationship, the rule is just don't poop in front of your partner at all. You kind of develop a knack for just holding it in, farts, poops, everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think you used to do that. Like you would spend like a whole week when we were first together where you wouldn't poop. And I don't know why, because you would get onto the train and then you would send me a photo of it.
I would not.
You were like, I had the biggest poop.
I would not.
Look at this. I'm
I
like, you could have just pooped in my house.
I would never send you a picture.
You didn't send a picture, but you certainly told me about it.
So what were we talking about?
So basically, the point is, there's all these poop bags that are piling up in the hallways where you just know that people aren't sealing them properly. There's definite seepage going on. At some point on day 2, for those sleeping on the top deck, it starts to rain torrentially.
So those that made a makeshift fort or room are getting soaked.
So now they have no choice but to go back down to their shit and piss soaked cabins. But even worse than that, if they wanted somewhere to sleep, they had to haul their soaking wet mattresses back down to their cabins. Except the hallways, remember, and the stairwells are now laden with buckets and buckets of poop where people are storing their red bags.
And it's probably getting knocked over and oh no.
Not sealed properly. The carpets are still wet with piss and poop. People have soaking wet mattresses and it's now been dragged through all of this piss and poop. It's just wonderful. I love it.
I wonder at what point do you just stop caring and go, there's no point trying to get clean.
You
I wonder
just
if you just
accept
get used to it in a way. Like you've smelt that smell for the last 72 hours. Maybe it doesn't get any worse.
100%. I think there comes a point where you're just like, I have no concern for my dignity anymore. This is happening. And sorry, Mr. Pasture, I know you're standing in front of me, but I'm pooing right now.
I was
And
gonna
you
say.
maintain eye contact with him.
Did people just get, do you know what, I'm just going to go here? Does not matter.
Exactly. It does not matter.
Oh.
So at this point, the Triumph then announced that they had arranged for a series of tugboats to be sent from the nearest port in Progreso, Mexico. The plan was to tow the ship back to shore in Mexico and then fly all the passengers back to Galveston in Texas. But people are now getting sick. They're not eating properly. They're severely dehydrated at this point. And the ones that are eating, they're just eating warm, spoiled food, which just makes them poop even more. So it's just a self-perpetuating kind of situation. On top of this, nobody's sleeping. So on day 3, the crew do manage to fix one of the ship's generators, right? Which allows them to restore some of the ship's basic functions, including a total of 5 toilets.
5 toilets. Okay.
And as you can imagine, it's still not enough for 4,200 passengers and crew on board, right?
No.
And honestly, at this stage, like we just said, the damage is done, man. At this point, I'm shitting in my pants. I don't give a shit. There's no protecting our dignity at this point. I am a changed person from here on out for the rest of my life.
Oh. And this is only day 3.
Yeah. So to lift everyone's spirits and to obviously try to prevent a literal mutiny here, the ship decides on a brilliant idea. They're going to give away a lot of free booze.
That's not a good idea. That really is not a good idea.
They open up and establish a bar on the Lido deck. And with nothing on the ship to do, everyone takes advantage. So very quickly, due to the lack of food, it takes less than an hour for people to realize how tremendously stupid this idea is. Fights start breaking out all over the ship. People are throwing furniture overboard and into the pool. People are openly peeing and vomiting inside the pool.
Oh, God.
Adam, it is rowdy. And on top of this, the ship has another blackout and obviously a generator breaks again. People are now having full-on panic attacks at the idea of being dragged back into the nightmare that they've been living for the last 2 days. Like that generator coming back online was that one bit of glimmer of hope that these people needed in that moment, and it was taken away. At one point, the crew had to literally deal with a situation where a guy was threatening to throw himself off board. So it's hectic.
Literally, it's like, I can't do this anymore. That's it. I'd rather take my chances with the sea.
Yeah. So the bar isn't even open for 2 hours before they just shut that thing down. No more alcohol was served for the entire rest of the trip.
It just didn't make sense. People are dehydrated as it is. That's not going to
And
help.
it's going to make you more dehydrated. You're right.
They just thought, oh, this will stop people from, I don't know, like you say, lift people's spirits. But I was like, no.
I think what it was is that they thought that the generator online would start to return some functionality, the toilets and stuff. But yeah, broke down again. I think maybe it came back online a little while later, but at this point, they were like, no more alcohol. That's it. We're not taking the risk. So eventually, our good old mate Jen, she comes back on the intercom with the following announcement.
I know we're all waiting for the tugboats. They were supposed to be here at noon today. The captain has just advised me that the tugboats will be here slightly delayed at about 3 o'clock. I think it's to do with the fact that we've drifted away so far away in the wind.
She still seems quite chirpy, that
I
Jen.
know, she's brilliant.
And there's some like music going on in the background to kind of just, I don't know, probably like disguise all the like pooping sounds and like
These
vomiting.
are passengers recording this on their phones. That's and so the music's playing in the background.
Yeah.
So they obviously had some music. Maybe people had Bluetooth speakers. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So the tugboats are massively delayed at this point because the ship has now drifted over 100 miles from where they initially broke down. So these tugboats are going to be way off schedule in arriving at the poop ship, basically. And I feel so bad for the crew, Adam. Like the stuff that they probably had to deal with, I just cannot imagine. Like having to deal with angry, stinky guests. But also, you know they were picking up people's poop.
Yeah. Like these people deserve not just a raise,
They
not just a
deserve-
bonus. They deserve, I don't know, a medal.
They do. But also, at this stage, as a passenger, and like I said, I'm not a good person on this cruise. At this stage for me, I've accepted that I'm living in a dystopian nightmare. I'm living for the moment that a crew member comes to collect my poop. I'm like, yeah, Gary, pick it up. Pick up my poop. Look at me when you do it. Poor Gary. So the crew really did have it rough, right? Remember, most of their quarters were situated on the lower decks.
Oh, no.
So they had the full brunt of the poop and the peep situation.
I imagine just opening the door to their rooms and it's just like,
Mm.
it's like almost waist deep.
Yuck. And the gas and the heat. Ooh. It's not clear whether or not they were allowed to sleep in Tent City. I hope that they would have been allowed to. But if they weren't, they were literally sleeping in sewage.
Mm.
And don't get me wrong, the passengers really do praise the crew, especially Jen, right? She is incredible. By day 3, though, the tugboats, they do finally arrive. They rig up the ship and they start to kind of tug the boat back to land. Because the ship had drifted so far away from Mexico at this point, it meant that they were now equidistant between Mexico and the USA, but not Galveston, Texas. Instead, the Coast Guard decided they're now going to tow the Triumph all the way back to Mobile, Alabama,
Okay.
which is 550 miles from Galveston. Obviously, at this point, CNN, they are covering, as they always do, they are covering the story 24/7. They are the network of the 2013 Poop Cruise from Hell. They keep reporting that the Carnival have not yet given an official statement on any of this. And it's not until Carnival's owner is spotted at a Miami Heat's game, which is a basketball game, that eventually on Wednesday, the 13th of February, the CEO is finally forced to step forward and make a public statement. He says, I think it's very important that I apologize to our guests and their families that have been affected by this very difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
They announced that the Triumph will now be arriving in Mobile, Alabama on the 14th of February, so Valentine's Day, very romantic. Imagine waking up and making love on that day.
Not if you're on the boat. Maybe you would. I don't know.
You might be into that.
You might.
If
you
you've
might
accepted the situation.
You might discover something that you didn't, deep and dark inside of you.
And the reason why they were so reluctant to say anything was because they were hoping that this story would just breeze past. Because Carnival still had every intention of getting Triumph docked in Galveston and turned around to pick up the next round of passengers.
No.
Yeah.
They need to like just burn that ship.
Yes, that's what I said. Light a match. But it's only now, after the owner was spotted, obviously out having a jolly, that they finally cancel all the cruises to at least mid-April, and they offer everyone a refund. But it's also because they realize that the conditions on board, because they're now finally looking into it because they're forced to, that they realize just how bad it is. It's way worse than anyone on board was physically telling them. It's going to, at minimum, take 2 months to cleanse the ship from top to bottom before anyone can be welcomed on board.
I feel like you just need to start again.
Yeah, like I said, like you said, just light a match, right?
Yeah. Once the people are off, of course.
You probably wouldn't even need to light a curtain, right? You just need to strike the match.
Just like
and
that
the rest will do
flammable.
exactly. So it's not great for Carnival, Adam. It's not great. So it's not until after the story starts gaining national coverage that Carnival start to at least try to make people's lives more comfortable on board. They weren't really trying. They sent a Coast Guard helicopter to deliver a much needed generator. So I don't know why they just couldn't do that initially.
I figured like they just couldn't do it, but you're now saying actually there's a whole heap of stuff they could have done.
Yeah, sounds like it to me, doesn't it?
Like clean clothes.
Mm-hmm. Probably cost, right? It's probably all down to cost. Probably also not truly understanding how just dire everything was. I do think that there was probably a management problem here, which indicates the toxicity of the organization. If they're too scared to speak to management to say, listen, this is the situation we're in, because they might have been in fear of getting into trouble. Or it could be the PR issue as well, because they were still reeling from the incident that happened with Costa Concordia just a year before, where those 32 people died. So PR for them is really important at this moment.
I can understand the PR thing, right or wrong, but I can't imagine anyone on that ship going like, oh, don't worry, we've got it all under control. And I know Jen seems quite calm.
She probably did.
But she is probably high or something like that in order just to get through.
A Valium.
Just high off the fumes, probably.
This is great. But basically, they send a helicopter, and this is essentially how easy this entire thing could have been avoided. Because on Wednesday, that generator restores enough power to get power running for one elevator, as well as a large majority of the toilets.
So why did they not do that in 24 hours?
Exactly. So on Thursday, the 14th of February, the Triumph was on its final approach to the main dock in Mobile, Alabama. But of course, that would be too easy, right? So fate decides that it's going to snap one of the tethers hauling the ship. And so this results in a significant delay. They now won't be arriving until later that evening, so well after sunset. So it's just another blow for the morale on board. Throughout the day on Thursday, the crew begins scrambling to scrub all the outer decks, which to the media, who are like flying over on helicopters and stuff, they see this, it just screams like a cover-up to them. Because Carnival know that the media will be waiting for them when they dock. So they don't want it to look like it was hell on board. They want it to kind of like, everything's fine here. It's all part of that PR spin that they're going to try and attempt to spin here.
Yeah, but I can just imagine like the whole ship's like just covered in stains down the side. It's like, I don't know, how can you cover this up?
They also, Adam, start serving way better food. And people are like, where the hell did all this food come from?
Is that because it's been shipped in or helicoptered in?
No, they had been holding on to the food until the last day so the passengers wouldn't roll up to the dock looking like a pack of wild animals.
Really? Did they actually say that? Or were they just holding some back in order for like rationing? But
Listen, exactly. I think the reality is like, hey, we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. Let us hold some food back. And then finally, they're on the final stretch. They're like, okay, great. We don't need to hold this food back. Let's get it out. We're getting to the end of the cruise. Let's just get it all out. That's what realistically sounds like happened to me. But a lot of people are like, yeah, they kept all this food back so they could spoil us on the last day. So the last meal we have.
Was it like a
is
positive
memorable.
note?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way to end on a positive note.
After this.
But yeah, if you could have just like shipped more food in, yes, you could still ration, but they could still have ate okay.
Sure. And I guess they didn't have a generator at the time, so they couldn't cook anything. They probably had some of the food, but then a lot of it spoiled as well. So who knows?
Fair enough.
So finally, before 9:30 p.m. on Thursday, February the 14th, the Triumph finally docks in Mobile, Alabama, after an extra 5 days trapped on board without power. So they were stuck in there for 5 days, 5 days longer than they were expecting to. There is footage of passengers on the outer deck literally shouting and cheering with joy. They must be so relieved, poor people.
Were they met by like a crowd and like press and all sorts?
Oh, yes, the press were all over this. About an hour later, 10:30 p.m., the Triumph finally docks and they start letting passengers off. It literally takes hours, and that's mostly because there was only one elevator working on the ship. Most of the passengers have to use the stairs because they obviously have a lot of heavy luggage. Let's not forget the stairwells are also where they were storing all the buckets and buckets of literal poop.
I don't know what belongings I'd want to take with me, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. I'd be like, wallet, keys, bye.
Yeah. Passport. Yeah, I'm out of here. I imagine all the crowd just being really excited and like, yeah, you're here, you're safe. And then they're walking off the ship and they go, oh God, what is that?
It's like when Pumbaa gets to the watering hole and he has a little fart and all the animals just go, bong.
Yeah.
So from the dock, as people are coming off, a few passengers do need to be taken to hospital. Thankfully, no one dies, though. They were just basically mostly dehydrated and tired. A few people were still sick from like Mexico belly or Triumph cruise ship belly, basically. As passengers are leaving, CNN, of course, is out in full force with camera crews desperate to interview anyone who would talk to them. And people talked. They were literally queuing up to get on the news and tell the world exactly what happened on the poop cruise. And I should mention that people did say that the media was over-sensationalizing their reporting of this. It was overblown. And the situation wasn't actually as bad as some people made it out to be. But honestly, there was a huge contrast between the different accounts. So it made me wonder, those people that were like, oh, it was all overblown, they were on the fucking upper decks.
Probably.
Yeah.
They probably didn't get the same level of exposure.
Exactly. One guy says, I saw a few people crying, but honestly, without the dirtiness, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, excuse me? Like, people crying on a cruise ship is a pretty bad sign that something's not right.
And setting up a whole new room on the deck.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the shanty town? Oh,
Yeah.
it's not that bad. Of course, no one does that. No one wants to drag their mattress all the way up. So it depends who you are, basically. He also says it was just like camping on a cruise ship. But I guess at the same time, it depends who you are, right? And what your expectations are. No one books a luxury cruise voyage and expect to camp out, right?
No, you go camping for that.
Yeah, you go camping for that. So I get the tears. One woman screamed.
Well,
I love
screamed.
this. She goes, it was a mix of Survivor and Lord of the Flies. And just for reference, if you haven't read Lord of the Flies, it's horrific. Like in chapter 11, Ralph and Piggy, they go back up to negotiate to get Piggy's glasses back, while someone deliberately rolls a rock down the mountainside. It smashes into Piggy and kills him instantly.
Yeah, that's pretty horrific.
So she's likening it to Lord of the Flies.
Wow.
So that's pretty bad to me. And the fact that she screamed it was just the cherry on the top.
Oh, the humanity.
Yes. Just wow. And remember, the Triumph was supposed to dock in Galveston a week earlier, right? Of course, nobody was prepared to end the cruise in Alabama. So Carnival gave the passengers two options. Option one is they could take a 7-hour bus ride back to Galveston that night, right, after everything you've just been through. Or you could take a 2-hour bus ride to New Orleans, stay in a hotel that Carnival would have booked for you, and then fly you back to Galveston the next day.
I'll do that.
Exactly. Assuming that most people would take option two, Carnival book 1,500 rooms and send a bunch of people off to New Orleans. Because that's like the safe assumption to make, right? Because all you want to do at this point is just have a shower.
Yeah.
And I do imagine the scene from a movie where something really traumatic happens to you and you have to get into the shower and you're wailing and you're crying and then you slowly slide down the shower wall and you crumple into a ball.
Like sobbing.
Yeah, that's me at this point. Just scrubbing your skin with bleach. Get it off me.
I just want some food that's not contaminated.
Yeah, you want a good meal, right? But also think of the alternative, right? Having to sit on a bus for another 7 hours after 5 days on the poop cruise, but also unshowered. And everyone else on that bus is also unshowered as well.
Yeah.
No, thank you. So for some, that was their only option. And on their way, one of the buses breaks down again, leaving everyone stranded again. So out of habit, they just immediately start shitting into bags.
No, you're making that up.
That bit I made up. But yeah, one of the buses break down and like I would be so mad.
I'd be like, I really miss the cruise. Let's just shit in the bus.
The next day, Carnival CEO Gary Carhill, he holds a news conference. And again, he apologizes on behalf of Carnival and he thanks the passengers for their patience and their cooperation. And he announces that there would be a compensation package, which would entail you to a full refund for your cruise. Great. Credit towards a future Carnival cruise.
Nope.
And £500 worth of cash.
I'll take the cash. I'm not going back on one of your ships.
Interestingly, though, like loads of people were like, the 500 quid wouldn't even cover the missed work that they've just endured. Because remember, their vacation time had ended, right?
Yeah.
It was supposed to end 5 days ago. Then the Carnival make a special statement, and I love that it's dressed up as a special statement. They announce that passengers can keep the complimentary robes from the ship. That's funny because this is announced after everyone's disembarked.
Yeah, who is keeping that? Unless that's the only clean item of clothing you have.
Exactly.
You're not taking that.
So my question is, did anyone contact them and say, can I have my complimentary robe, please? Or did anyone turn around and go, I'm just going to go back onto the ship and collect my robe?
Yeah, if it's after as well. Yeah, that's so dumb.
So dumb.
Unless Jen's there on the way out handing them out. Thanks. See you again soon.
And they're just random people's robes. This one's fine. This one's still got a lot of use in it. Take this one.
Like, Jen, get yourself off that ship.
Yeah,
You've done enough.
You've been sniffing too many poop fumes. Good old Jen. But yeah, let's be real. Hey, no one's taking those robes. What they want, basically, is to forget that they had spent an entire week inside a porta potty.
They needed counselling.
Yeah.
That's what that 500 should get. Yeah.
Oh, no. So as you would expect, a multi-agency investigation into Poop Cruise began almost immediately. The Bahamas Maritime Authority took the lead on this, since, of course, that's where the ship was registered, right? They were also joined by the US Coast Guard and the National Transport Safety Board. And it doesn't take them long to find the cause of the fire, which turned out to be a leaking fuel line from one of the engines that ended up igniting on the engine's hot surface.
Mm-hmm.
It's also then discovered that Carnival's own maintenance records showed that the fuel leak was reported more than a year ago,
Oh,
and nothing was done about it.
okay. So this is not just like a freak accident.
Mhm.
This is just, bad maintenance.
Exactly. In fact, there'd been 9 prior instances of fuel tanks on the Triumph leaking over the previous 2 years. So when Triumph departed from Galveston, they knew all of these problems.
Yeah, they should have done more compensation, really.
Mhm.
That's bad. So is anyone taking them to court or anything?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But obviously there's going to be a surprise there, isn't there?
Uh-huh.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
So it's just a PR nightmare for them, right? They're still trying to recover from the fallout of the Costa Concordia. So this just adds to that. It's just compounding for them. To make things even worse, while the ship was docked in Alabama waiting for repairs, strong winds cause the ship to break free. It drifts across the shipyard, crashes into another ship, causing the death of a dock worker.
Oh, no.
So, Adam, naturally, it's not long before the lawsuits start getting filed, right?
Mm.
27 passengers file charges for things like discomfort.
Discomfort.
Yeah.
And only 27.
Yeah. Not many, is it?
No.
Medical expenses.
Hmm.
Mental and emotional distress. I don't know why I'm laughing. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Mental and emotional distress.
I'm with you on all of these so far.
Lost earnings.
Yeah.
Lost vacation time. And other out-of-pocket expenses caused by the poop cruise, obviously. In court, Carnival argues that the ship had passed all the inspections and that it was in complete compliance of the regulations. The judge doesn't see this in this way, obviously, and he rules that Carnival was in fact liable for the fire based on the obvious maintenance records.
Mm.
He's a good judge.
Yeah.
But the judge did rule that Carnival had not in fact breached the contract with their passengers.
What does that mean?
As Carnival lawyers diligently pointed out, tickets did not explicitly promise safe voyage, a seaworthy vessel, adequate food, or sanitary living conditions.
I'm sorry. Is that they need to specify that?
To me, that's a given, isn't it?
Do we now need to check everything we book just to make sure, like, this is going to be I know they can't guarantee everything.
But you would at least expect, am I going to be safe?
Yeah.
And are you going to do everything that you can to keep me safe?
Yes, absolutely.
And give me snacks.
Yeah. So it feels like if Carnival doesn't do this, what other companies don't do this?
Exactly. Here we come back to the very beginning part of this episode. Do not go on a cruise ship because they cannot guarantee all that stuff. And because of this, Carnival aren't required to pay a single penny of punitive damages out to these passengers. So there it is, guys. If you're planning on going on a cruise, it's not even guaranteed that you will get safe voyage or sanitary living conditions. However, out of goodwill, Carnival do agree that 3 of the lawsuits, they'll be given $15,000 in compensation, but it's purely goodwill. And the other 24 remaining, they were awarded like in varying amounts of up to $3,000 on average, basically. So they do give something, but it's purely out of goodwill. They're not required to give out those punitive damages. Isn't that sickening?
Yeah. But then I'm just trying to think that there's got to be like guaranteeing safety within reason, right? Like you do all the maintenance check. You can't obviously predict that there's going to be like a natural disaster or something, I don't know, terrorist, like the worst extremes. But surely basic maintenance in the running of a vehicle or whatever, that is what you're signing up for.
Sure.
And that's what they should be held to.
I think so. 100%.
So is the Triumph still going?
It is.
They managed to clean it or rip it apart, put in some air freshener.
So the ship was repaired. Of course, they scrubbed every inch from top to bottom. It ends up taking 4 months rather than the 2 months. And in June 2013, Triumph went straight back into service, Adam. My question is, who in their right mind would get onto that ship after 4 months, knowing the horrors that happened on there?
Yeah, because people were like, oh, I'm going on a cruise. It's the Triumph. And then you're in your cabin. You'll be like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Like you've removed maybe a painting and behind it there's still like a stain and you're like, oh, they didn't get all the nooks and crannies.
Do you know like when you go into like a nice manor house or somewhere, you go, if these walls could talk. And then you get onto the cruise ship and you do say the exact same thing. And then the walls go, well, let me tell you what happened in February of 2013.
Yeah. Ugh.
Ugh.
Gross.
Rank. But the thing is, though, the Triumph name is now ruined. And I think Carnival also knew that because in 2019, Carnival spends $200 million completely renovating and remodeling the entire ship. And then they give it a brand new name, obviously. It's now called Carnival Sunrise.
Okay, but people that go on that will be like, but this used to be the Triumph.
Yeah.
You
The
know
ones
what,
in
you know
the
what
know.
happened here.
And today, the Sunrise is still out there, Adam, cruising all over the Caribbean as if nothing happened.
They should have like a little museum where you can go and look around how it once was. They haven't touched it, they haven't cleaned it or anything.
Yeah.
Just a little entertainment.
And Adam, that is the story of the Carnival Triumph, the poop cruise from hell.
Yeah, that's definitely cemented that I don't want to go on a cruise. I had a friend who he worked in travel, and I think they were working on a cruise at the same time COVID happened. And so they couldn't get off the ship and they
really?
were like stranded on there. And I think they ended up like they went to university to study travelism and get into it. And actually, they no longer work in travelism as a result.
Changed my mind.
This ends careers.
Yeah, for sure. Your niece as well, she was desperate to get into cruise ships.
Well, that
Don't
was,
send her this episode.
that was one option. But yeah, she might think twice now. This feels like it should be a comedy film or something.
Oh, do you reckon?
It's got to be like dramatized.
Yeah, well, I have a surprise for you. On the 24th of June, Netflix are releasing what they call Trainwreck Poop Cruise, a documentary about this entire saga. And the trailer, Adam, is fucking epic. It's got the dramatic music, it's got the tension, it showcases this entire saga from start to finish. Do you want to hear it?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Welcome on board the beautiful Triumph.
We just love going on cruises. The food, the pool, the water slide. I mean, what more could you ask?
This was absolutely the bachelorette party that I had dreamed of.
We were like, this is awesome. And then the lights go out.
Attention. Alpha team.
Oh my God.
Alpha team. Alpha team.
More than 4,000 people are stuck on a cruise ship that is dead in the water.
That's when all of us were like, what the
When power goes, that's it. Everything's out.
It was immediately crisis mode.
The toilets weren't working. Well, we can do a number one in the shower. And then
I'm telling you, it got bad fast.
I would never expect having to poop in a red bag. Oh no. Oh no.
No. Suddenly, everyone's out for themselves.
You could hear the panic.
We were starting to smell urine.
Oh my God.
It was terrifying.
We had camera people, crews on boats, a helicopter up in the air.
Fights broke out.
The ship is on fire.
What the is happening on this cruise ship?
It's like shantytown.
It's like something that came out of a nightmare movie.
The snowball has started to roll, and there's no stopping it.
My God, it's chaos.
Amazing.
How incredible.
I'm watching that.
I cannot wait. It is so dramatic. And that is literally what it was like. I only found out that this was coming out after I'd done the research for it. And then when I watched that trailer, I was like, I'm proud of myself that I've embodied everything, all the chaos that was in the story.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I'd love to hear some of the people's personal stories and stuff like that, what they actually witnessed and experienced.
Someone's on their bachelorette party, for God's sake.
That is like Bridesmaids.
So I cannot wait for this. But also, the biggest take home for me is that the cruise industry's dirty secret is that regulations don't mean shit when it comes to protecting passengers, especially if your ship is registered or flagged in another country, like the Bahamas, as is the case with the Triumph. And how often do you see these cruise ships with different flags on them, right? They're not governed by the UK or the United States or whatever. So they're not held to the same level of scrutiny as something that is registered under the FAA. But remember, the ship took off knowing that those generators didn't work. If they were under proper scrutiny, would they have still done that? Would they have made sure that they didn't leave with 2 generators broken? Probably not.
But I just feel like they're going to be losing money. Like even let's even forget the passengers actually just being like a good business. From a corporate greed kind of point of view.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to use that ship for whatever if it breaks down, this, that, and the other. And they know that they're probably going to have to compensate something. It just doesn't make financial sense.
I think they're taking a gamble there. They're taking a gamble that it's not going to break down. But when it does, it ends up costing them a shit ton of money. So you got to balance, you got to think about it logically. When it does break, it's going to end up costing you a shit ton with all the, not the lawsuits in this case, because it sounds like they got away scot-free. It's going to cost you something. And like what, when you balance the scales afterwards, how much worth it was it to not do it? Yeah, you probably got away with maybe 100 million, but was that enough?
Yeah, that is a shit ton. Or a ton of shit.
A ton of shit. Well done. But the thing is, it's just crazy. It's like the ship took off knowing that the generators didn't work. It's like a plane taking off knowing it only has one engine working. That would never fly, right? Anywhere else.
It wouldn't fly. Right, it wouldn't fly.
See what I did there? That was on purpose. I intended that.
I don't know if you did.
So, freaks, have you guys been on a cruise? We want to know some of your horror stories. Tell us everything in every single gory details, please. We beg you. I want to know. We'll read them out on the show.
Yes.
So, Adam, should we run the outro for this week?
Let's do it.
And that brings us to the end of another fascinating foray into the compendium and assembly of fascinating things. We hope you enjoyed the ride as much as we did.
And if today's episode sparked your curiosity, then please do us a favor and follow us on your favorite podcast app. It truly makes a world of difference and helps more people like you discover the show.
And for our dedicated freaks out there, don't forget that next week's episode is already waiting for you on our Patreon and is completely free to access.
And if you want even more, then join our Certified Freaks tier to unlock the entire archive, delve into exclusive content, and get a sneak peek at what's coming next. We'd love for you to be part of our growing community.
And don't forget, we drop new episodes every Tuesday. And until then, remember, next time you pack for a cruise, you might want to add some biohazard bags.
Gross.
See you next time.
See ya.